And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Hey, great to have you with us as always, and we got a fun show for you once again here today. You know, last week, and I appreciate everybody who's subscribing and coming in to watch Hockey Sense. I kind of set the table at the beginning of the show in terms of moving this from a radio show that had been going on for 20 plus years now to full-time podcasting. And I love the podcasting because you can listen to it when you want, on your own terms. And that's always the best way to go about doing it. So, listen, this has been great so far. We're here at the Half Coast Studios. We got Aiden in the house, Maddie always helping out as well, Alex, the whole crew, Jason back in our comfy confines, back in our home offices. He takes care of everything behind the scenes too. So we couldn't get this done without everybody else. It's late August, but hockey is in full swing. If you have a youth hockey player, if you're a coach, you certainly know that. You don't need me to tell you that. We've got a big show coming up and a big event happening this weekend with the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame. I'll be emceeing the event once again this year. Looking forward to that. We've got some big dogs going in this year. Former Blues defenseman Rick Zombo. Jay Verity, who's an assistant coach with the Detroit Red Wings. Mike McKenna, longtime professional goaltender. Played with a number of different teams. And, so he'll be recognized tomorrow, and always look forward to catching up with Mike. Connor Dunlop, who played at Notre Dame, grew up playing here in St. Louis with that 80-81 birth year. His dad, Blake Dunlop, a former Blues player, longtime NHL player, was a coach of that team. And Connor went on to play with the U.S. program, captained the World Junior team back in the 90s, and he's going to be recognized as well. Rob Kellogg, a longtime St. Louis hockey player, played some D1 hockey. He'll be going in. Scott Backel, former goaltender, grew up one of the top goaltenders here in St. Louis, and then ended up having a long career as a official. He made it all the way up to the American Hockey League. He may have gone to some like NHL referee training camps, boot camps, however they go about doing that for the refs. But he officiated a number of international tournaments too. So give Scotty Backel a big shout out. Mike Krogan, very influential in a number of local programs here in St. Louis. So he's going in as a builder. So I think that covers it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Scotty Rupp puts on the event. This is the 15th annual St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame ceremony. So always fun. Catch up with a lot of people. A lot of hockey people come. And it brings out some big dogs, too. I mean, you'll see Al McInnes there. You'll see Rob Ramage there. You'll see Paul Stastny, Peter Stastny, Cam Jansen. A lot of people will be coming to support the inductees that are going in this year. So should be a great event. I should point out that if you can't get there, it's at the St. Charles Convention Center on Saturday night. I believe it's going to be streamed live on YouTube. So maybe just type in St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame. The dinner starts at 6. The ceremony, the induction ceremony will take place immediately after. So I would imagine sometime around 7 is when the induction ceremony will take place. So just search that on YouTube. You should be able to find it. All right, so what a week. I mean, last week we had on Gene Principe from the Edmonton Oilers broadcast on television. And we're getting into the offer sheets. He joined us on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. And we really didn't know which way this was going to go. I've said all along that I thought the Blues would get at least one, and who knows, maybe they would get 2. I never for a second thought that they were going to get shut out, because the way Doug Armstrong operates and how intelligent and strategic his team is, I didn't feel like they were going to put themselves in a situation where this was going to be an easy match, number one, because we all knew that it wouldn't be. You typically attack the teams that are completely handcuffed and have put themselves in a bad position and who expose themselves. And that's exactly what the Edmonton Oilers did with these 2 players. And so I felt like they would get 1. Who knows? Maybe they would get 2. And they ended up getting both of them. You know, I was critical of my career a little bit, and I wouldn't say critical, but I brought this up on the podcast with Cam Jansen and myself on the Cam and Strick podcast. which drops every Tuesday. And I talked about how I didn't understand why Mike Greer did the deal with Edmonton for Cody Ceci several days, or at least a few days prior to the Tuesday deadline for the offer sheets. Assuming that there was a connection there, that Edmonton was moving on from Cody Ceci in an effort to open up the necessary cap space to keep one of the two players, either Dylan Holloway or Phillip Broberg. And so I was saying, why do the deal on Saturday or Sunday for a third-round pick when you could maybe hold Stan Bowman and Edmonton's feet to the fire and do the deal on Monday night, maybe even Tuesday morning, and potentially get a better compensation, maybe a second-round pick. I don't think you'd get a first-round pick for Cody Ceci, but maybe you would get a second. And who knows how desperate Edmonton would be in terms of what they'd be willing to give up if they were really hard set on keeping one of these two players. But it turns out, after talking to some people with all the organizations involved, that Edmonton, prior to the deal with Cody Ceci, had already made the decision that they weren't going to match the two offer sheets. So I think Edmonton knew even over the weekend that they were going to let these guys walk. We're going to have on Darren Ferris, longtime NHL agent, has a number of big-time clients, including Mitch Marner, Sam Bennett, Zach Bogosian. There's a number of guys, but he also represents Phillip Broberg, and we'll get into the connection that Ferris also had with Blake Robson, who represents Dylan Holloway, and that was just a seamless connection and just everything aligned perfectly for the Blues to get both players. But it turns out that Edmonton really was never truly going after or trying to find a creative way to keep either player. And they had made a decision relatively early in the process that they were going to let both players walk. And typically the way that it works is that if they're going to match the contracts, the players know that in relatively short fashion. I mean, soon after the offer sheets are made, there would normally be some type of communication between the team, in this case Edmonton, and Broberg and Holloway, where they'd say, hey, listen, guys, I know this happened, but we are going to match. That didn't happen. There was no conversations whatsoever, no communication between the team and the player. Stan Bowman had some conversations with the agents. I don't think he was very happy with the agents, but he had conversations with the agents and basically didn't communicate with the player until early on Tuesday when he informed them that officially they were not going to match. But it turns out, my point is that all the teams, all the parties involved, I assume St. Louis as well, knew that Edmonton was going to let these guys go. And so you would say, well, why did they make the trade for Cody Ceci? Well, they still needed to open up some cap space. And I find it hard to believe that Edmonton wants to go into the season with this group of defense behind their loaded offensive group, which includes McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman. And I mean, they made some other additions. I said that on Twitter shortly after the offers were signed, that I didn't understand why they went out and got Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson, and nothing against either of those two players. I've loved Arvidsson, for example, for a long time. He's a gamer, scores some big goals. He's been hurt, though. He only played 18 games last season. Skinner has never played a playoff game. But, you know, knowing the situation, that there was already a disconnect between the player, Broberg, and the Edmonton Oilers. The player had asked for a trade. There was some frustration on the players' end. That was communicated to the Oilers. They knew. They had to have known that he was going to be seeking out potential offer sheets. And then when Darren Ferris, Broberg's agent, tells me that there were actually 3 teams involved, and I reported that early on Tuesday morning, that there were 3 teams that were in position to make offer sheets or expressed interest in signing the player to an offer sheet or presented offer sheets, and that would include the St. Louis Blues. They eventually decided to go with St. Louis, and we'll talk to Darren Ferris about how they came to that decision. But I find the whole thing fascinating, and how well that these guys know the collective bargaining agreement. And I've said this several times, and this is why if I'm an owner in the NHL, I only want experience in my front office. I think experience is so important And some people are sitting there saying, hey, well, Alexander Steen's going to be taking over in 2 years. Well, he's going to be getting some experience over the course of the next 2 years. He's getting experience right now. But Doug Armstrong isn't going anywhere either, and he's going to be the president and still running hockey operations and be there to assist in all situations, including these type of situations that pop up. So as much as Alexander Steen is getting experience today and will be into next season and the season after, he'll still be learning and still be getting a number of learning experiences from working alongside Doug Armstrong when Army slides up to his new title of president of hockey operations. But it's not like when they make the change and Steen becomes president or general manager that he's just on his own and he's going to have to, learn, how to do everything, on his own without having anybody with experience around. Plus, the Blues have a number of other people with some experience. I'll tell you who's been gaining a lot of experience and is a name that does not get talked about pretty much at all is Ryan Miller, who works with the Blues. I mean, he is extremely smart when it comes to the CBA. He's not a household name among hockey fans. He didn't play at a high level, didn't play in the NHL. I don't know if he ever played hockey. I have no idea. But he knows the CBA, and he's very intelligent. You need those people around as well. I mean, you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, for example, the direction they're going in with their new general manager. These aren't necessarily hockey people. I think you got to have a balance. You have to have hockey people in your front office. You can't just have, smart lawyers and academics in your front office making hockey decisions. You better have some hockey people too. But these people are very useful and they're very smart. And when you look at the CBA and when you look at how the business side of hockey operations, you need these type of people in-house. And I think if you were to get Doug Armstrong alone and you were to ask him his opinion of that, I think he would 1,000% agree. And listen, Army never played in the NHL either, but I kind of put him in the category of a hockey guy, although he's very smart. He's proven that. But he's been around the game for so long, and he certainly understands how to evaluate talent, how to evaluate players, how to slot players, how to create a competitive roster, how to build a roster, how to build an organization. But he also understands how to build a front office, too. So then you get to the Peter Chirillis and the Tim Taylors and the Dave Taylors and the Al McInneses and the Keith Kachucks and all these people that work inside the organization. Collectively, Scott Mellenby. I always say Mellenby last, and it's not intentional because I've known Scott for over 20 years, and I understand everything that he's done throughout the course of his career, but sometimes you forget that he even works with the Blues. He's only been there for, a year or two, and he's spent so much time with Montreal and Vancouver prior to that. But he has a huge input and a huge role with the St. Louis Blues as well. So you look at his experience. How many people can you find in the league who played, what did Mellenby play, 1,500 games, something crazy? Then he served as a amateur scout, a pro scout, an assistant coach, an assistant GM, and now obviously being an advisor to the general manager here in St. Louis. So again, he's worn a lot of different hats and has a ton of experience. And you can never substitute playing experience. But when you get into the CBA and you start to understand the language in the CBA and understand that you have to have your original, draft pick in order to use it as compensation for these type of trades. And I got to ask Army as to why that's the rule. My assumption is because if you don't have your original pick, you could just go make a deal with another team and get their pick, and that team may end up finishing with the best record in the NHL, and that second-round pick could essentially become or be a third-round pick because it's so far down into the draft, or a third-round pick is almost like a fourth-round pick if you're getting it from, say, the Florida Panthers or somebody like that. So I think it does protect the team that is potentially losing a player. So it makes sense from that standpoint. So again, that deal could not have been done without the cooperation of Kyle Dubas. And for the Blues to get that original second-round pick back, which they had to have, I thought everybody did an unbelievable job for keeping it quiet and not allowing this to get out. Because if this were to get out, I mean, it could have potentially caused a lot of issues. And there were people inside the Blues organization that didn't even know. I'm sure there were, I don't think anybody in the Edmonton Oilers organization knew, although they should have been. Their antennas should have been up a little more. I'm not going to sit here and say that they weren't, but come on. You got a player who obviously they couldn't get signed. They made an offer, which I reported the contract terms of the offers that were made that were on the table to both Broberg and Holloway. Broberg a 2-year deal at $1.1 million, and Holloway a 3-year contract at just over $1 million, 1.050 for Dylan Holloway. And we'll ask Darren Ferris what he was looking for. Certainly wasn't asking Edmonton for 4.5 plus, which is what he's getting from St. Louis. But they obviously couldn't get a deal done, and this is his right within the terms of the CBA, talking about Broberg's camp and Holloway's camp to go out and fetch an offer sheet. So the potential is always there, and you need to protect yourself. And in this case, the Oilers completely left themselves exposed, and for the opportunity for Broberg to go out and do what he did. And let's remember, he did ask for a trade. There was some conflict. There were some issues between the two sides. So nobody should be surprised that the player in this case would be looking for an exit out of the organization and for an opportunity to make more money. And I've said this a few times now, that the $4.5 million, it looks like it's a lot, and it is. I mean, he's coming out of an entry-level deal where he was making less than $900, I believe. And, so it's a significant raise. So if you look at it just based purely on service time, it's a lot of money. But in terms of the role that Broberg should be playing here in St. Louis, where Doug Armstrong has already said he's going to be in position to play a top 4 role, whether that's, playing with Parayko or Falk or whoever that is, based on the value of the role that he's going to have, $4.5 million won't seem too crazy. Hey, First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week live from the Half Coast Studios. Hey, check out some of these loan rates that are happening right now. If you're looking to get a mortgage or anything like that, and I know a lot of people have been scared by the mortgage rates the last couple of years because they've been so high. If you're locked into a 30-year mortgage at a good rate, you're not looking to get out of that anytime soon. You're not moving anytime soon because the mortgage rates have been so crazy. But now they're starting to go down. The Federal Reserve is expected to lower rates in the near future, and that means home loan rates are expected to go down for a change instead of going up, and that's music to all of our ears. So if you got a great mortgage rate, like I said, consider staying in that. But if you're in the market for a new home, you'll probably need a home loan from First Community because they've got incredible options, including the first-time buyer. They got some great opportunities for first-time buyers. So if you're in the market, they've got a loan for everyone, like I said. But if you're buying your first home, or if you know someone who is, they have a first-time home buyer loan with no down payment required, which is huge. And they also offer the affordable alternative 5-year adjustable rate mortgage with a lower rate and a 30-year term to keep your payment more affordable. So learn all about your options at firstcommunity.com. Ask about the first-time buyer opportunities that they're offering right now, and some of these 5-year fixed rates, the 30-year rates, and all the other opportunities that they got right now. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every Friday, live from the Half Coast Studios. You can find us on YouTube and all the podcast platforms that you know of. Four Hands Brewing Company, the Cam & Strick Mango Lemonade Hard Seltzer back on the shelves on September 24th, so look for that. I'll be out at Four Hands tonight. Got a great event for the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame, recognizing Connor Dunlop. Can't wait for that. So check that out. Great things happening with Four Hands Brewing Company. They've got the new location in Kirkwood, food from Peacemaker, the downtown location, 1220 South 8th Street. They've got the location in Chesterfield, which is incredible. They got food from High Point there. It is absolutely incredible. All the year-round beers, the seasonal beers, all the seltzers, all of the 1220 spirits, the gins, the vodkas, the wines, everything. So check that out. Kevin Lemp and Company doing it right and taking our quality of life and craft beer here in St. Louis to the next level, one beer at a time. All right, so Devin Sand, 314 Sports Cards. Listen, card collecting has reemerged as an incredible business. I mean, it is as hot as it's ever been, to be honest with you. And I tell people all the time, nobody does it better than Devin Sant. The best selection of hockey cards in North America is right here in St. Louis, 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. They've got a great Instagram page, and Devin can fill us in on that. But it's great to have you back on the show, Devin. As it is every week, we get to talk. How are you today?
I'm good, Andy. Thanks for having me on as always. It really means a lot.
Absolutely. Hey, tell people, especially for those who are outside of St. Louis right now, how they can contact you and maybe see some of the great stuff that you guys have there at 314 Sports Cards.
Yeah, so we have a website, 314sportscards.com. It's got our email, our phone number. So if you have any questions, you can always call or email us. And then we're big on Instagram. So our Instagram handle is 314sports_cards.
314sports_cards. Get there and get there today. Hey, I got to ask you, Mike Trout, he opened up a card pack the other day. Did you see that? And he got his own card that was autographed by himself. Like, what'd you make out of that?
Yeah, that was a crazy industry kind of news. And you opening your own card with your son. Those boxes, for those who don't know, those boxes sell for like $3 or $4 grand sealed. And that card probably is worth about $5,000. So really neat experience for him and his family, for sure.
Wow. So how do you get those boxes? Those boxes that cost $3 to $4 grand. How do you get those, and what makes them so expensive?
Yeah, so those boxes were from 2009. So it features the first ever autograph and actually ever card of Mike Trout. So, you had to be in 2009. They were a lot less expensive, of course, but now that he's Hall of Fame career and everything, they're a little bit more costly.
Wow. So, what are the chances of that happening? Like, is it super rare? Like, it's just kind of crazy. He's opening a pack. See, like, I'm thinking, okay, they sent him a bunch of boxes. He's Mike Trout, and they knew that they were sending him a box that had his card in there. That's like the conspiracy theorist in me. It's probably not the case. This is just purely by chance, right?
Yes, purely by chance. I would say, I think there's 25 or 30 other players he could have gotten besides himself. So, I think he get one autograph per box. So certainly, 120 odds of pulling himself. So really cool thing to see.
Yeah, that was great. Really cool. And I love the fact that he was opening it up with his son too. And any dads out there or moms that are listening, man, it's a great thing to do with your kids. So if you want to buy these expensive boxes, where can you find them? Can I find them at 314 Sports Cards? Where do you find these boxes that cost that much money?
Maybe not the ones that are dating back, 3, 4, 5 years plus, but they do make a lot of newer boxes that come out, every week it seems like, and those could be costly upwards of, $300-400 and higher. So we do have those ones. Yes.
All right. So on the hockey side, is this what you were talking about a few weeks ago about a Connor Bedard card that somebody could potentially open? Like, we see some NHL players who have some autographed cards that you could possibly find when you buy one of these boxes?
Yes. So there's a lot of people love the autographed cards, the ones with pieces of patch in them, stuff like that. So those boxes are the ones that cost, $500 and higher.
Hey, so one of the your customers, he sent me a message about how this actually happened at 314 Sports Cards with Joseph Wool, the Maple Leafs goaltender. I should have asked you before you came on. Did he open up a pack and get an autographed card of himself or somebody else when he was at your store?
Yeah, so we've had Joseph to do a break with us 2 years in a row now, and both years he actually pulled his own card. But it was special last year, so I think it was July of 2023. First pack he opened, got his own rookie card in the same pack. So wow. First card in the first pack, he actually signed it and then kind of inscribed it and sent that to the individual. So it was a really cool experience for sure.
I love it. When you say rookie card, how many different rookie cards are there for a specific player, or is there just one? Like, how do you identify what is the actual rookie card?
So most skaters, and I say skaters, defensemen and forwards, those guys have, 60, 70 plus different cards. Now there's a few of them that are, the more known ones, the young guns, some of the base rookies and stuff. But for goalies, it's kind of a unique story because goalies can get cards without even playing in the game. So if they're called up to be a backup and then sent back down, they can still get cards made of them. So that's why Wool and Binnington, two of the bigger goalies here in the area, those guys don't have too many cards of them as rookies.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, Trent Frederick, I want to plug that. He's coming into the store on the 24th, so coming up this Saturday. When's he going to be there? What's he going to be doing there, Devin?
Yeah, so he'll be here tomorrow morning from 10 to 12. He's going to be giving away autographs, so everybody who comes in can get an autograph of him. And take a picture and say hi to Trent. And we're really excited for that.
Yeah, always excited for that. And then what's new for this coming hockey season? I mean, right around the corner, people are going to be asking for those Broberg and Holloway cards. I don't know if you have any of those players in Edmonton Oilers uniforms, but always exciting news to get the Blues back, on the front pages and excite people for the coming season. So that's got to be great for the local hockey card industry too.
Yeah, so on Monday, me and one of my guys here, we actually looked in our back stock and pulled out all of our Holloway, Broberg, Texier, Joseph, all of our new Blues players cards. So we have a fresh inventory of those guys here at Stoll.
Wow. So stop in and get those 314 Sports Cards, 9640 Olive Boulevard. Talk to Devin, his incredible staff. Again, nobody does it better. The best in the business. And you guys are so nice, man. You make everybody feel welcome, and the kids love coming in there too. So, Devin, keep up the great work, man. Always appreciate it. Enjoy hanging out with Trent tomorrow, and have fun with that. And we'll do it again next week, man. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks. Have a great weekend, Andy. It means a lot. I appreciate it.
You're the best. That's Devin saying. 314 Sports Cards. He really is. So take your son or daughter in there and get in there today. 314 Sports Cards. Lordo's Diamonds. If you're looking to get that special someone in your life, something special, go to Lordo's Diamonds. They got the best selection of engagement rings anywhere. Mike and Jimmy Lordo will take unbelievable care of you. They've been around for almost 70 years, so that should tell you all you need to know right there. Just in terms of what you're getting with Lordo's Diamonds, they are incredible. They're the absolute best. LordosDiamonds.com, right next to Truffles in the heart of Ladue. Argo Construction, I was out there earlier this week saying hello to the guys and kind of picking their brain about ice rink construction and everything else that's going on. If you're looking to build an ice rink anywhere in the country, check out Arco Construction. They'll do it anywhere. They've got projects going on in the Southeast, projects in the middle, in the Midwest, in the Pacific Northwest, West Coast, everywhere. They built the Blues practice facility. They built that beautiful 2-sheet facility in Chesterfield, the Maryville University ice rink. They've got their hands in so many different things. They built Putt Shack here in St. Louis, Top Golf here in St. Louis, and other locations as well. So they're bringing the fun to St. Louis as well. Jeff Cook, John Comlos, these guys are absolutely incredible. They're the best in the business when it comes to building ice rinks. If you're listening to the show, even if you're outside of the St. Louis area, and you know someone that is looking to construct or wanting to construct an ice rink, and they're looking at different listen, these guys are the best. So Arco Construction, hit me up. I can help you get in touch with them, or you can check out their incredible website as well, arcoconstruction.com. All right, we got to step aside. When we come back, Darren Ferris, we're going to dig right into it, man. We're going to talk to the agent for Phillip Broberg and kind of pick his brain. I'm looking forward to this conversation. You should too. Hardcore hockey talk, hardcore offer sheet talk coming up next year on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. All right, so big news, obviously, within the last week. I always like to talk to the people who orchestrate everything behind the scenes. How does it all come together? It's very fascinating. And Darren Ferris is with us, longtime NHL agent. And Darren, listen, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. And this has kind of got to be fun for you as well. I know you're not looking to, make life difficult on others and all of that. But, you get into the industry, there's a collective bargaining agreement, and, being able to be creative and use, different types of strategy has got to be kind of fun. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, it is. And I think teams should utilize, it's available in the CBA. They should utilize it more often. I don't see why everybody gets uptight about it on teams and figures there'd be a payback it's crazy because the numbers aren't ridiculous that are being offered to these guys. And I could understand if we didn't have a cap world, I'm sure they would be. I was talking about it with another general manager. The numbers could go, ridiculously high if there wasn't a cap, but there is, so it keeps it pretty tame, and it's as I said, a tool for teams to use. I don't know why they don't use it more often.
Yeah, and I've said all along, listen, based on his service time, the number looks a little bit outrageous, or it looks, crazy in terms of what he was making coming off of his entry level deal. But in reality, in terms of the role that he's probably going to have here and the opportunity he's going to have to be able to produce. And the minutes he's going to be able to play, $4.5 million is probably going to be in line with the actual role. It's just, it's it's a big raise, and I think that's what gets people's attention, right?
It is and it isn't. Like, I mean, I always find our cap system and I mean, realistically, guys like Connor should be making the max, and he doesn't, and it should be. So our cap has been artificially kept low. We've got multiple caps in this system. You look back 20 years, there were $10 million players, probably more, if not as many $10 million players 20 years ago as there is today. So we really haven't caught up to the cost of living and the standards of other sports. So,
all right, in the case of Phillip Broberg, and listen, the idea is to get the player. If you're St. Louis, you see some
Correct.
offer sheets maybe that have been signed in the past where it's an easy match and it's easy for the team to make that decision right away. Did you feel pretty comfortable that once the deal was signed, that this was going to be very, very difficult for Edmonton to keep Broberg, and then obviously you throw in Dylan Holloway. It was going to be difficult to keep both of them for sure, but did you feel like this was an offer sheet that, based on its actual design, was going to, allow St. Louis to be able to get what they wanted here?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty creative of Doug, because originally I was calling around for an offer sheet for Phillip. We always do that. Whenever you have a pending RFA, you always explore all options. If you feel that, negotiations aren't going in the direction you want them, or at least at first blush, you sort of have an insight that, hey, you know what, they're not going to be able to pay this kid, especially where they were bumping up against the cap and other guys to sign. So you automatically do, whether it's Sam Bennett or Mitch Marner or whoever I have, I'm always out there exploring opportunities and options for them, for the player. So you lay them all out to the player prior. You let them know, hey, I'm going to work on this, and may come to fruition, may not. So.
And listen, your job is to go find teams that have cap space and also a need for your player,
right.
too. So, listen, everything aligned up perfectly for Broberg and for the Blues and the situation there with Edmonton in terms of where they're at, being up against the cap and being handcuffed a little bit. So everything kind of aligned in terms of the Blues having cap space, and they have a need for a left shot defenseman. When do you start looking at teams, looking at their cap space and looking who could be a good fit? When do you start thinking about that?
Well, throughout a player's career, we reevaluate. It's sort of like a moving target type of thing all the time. That there's different points of the year where a team may make some moves and may be vulnerable. So you make note of that. And you're always evaluating, looking, especially with pending UFAs or free agent players. I've been watching all year I'm going to have like 4 or 5 free agents this year. So looking at different opportunities that may, come about.
Yeah. How far apart were you with Edmonton? Listen, I reported that they had a 2-year deal on the table, just over $1 million. I think 1.1.
Yes.
I don't think you were
correct.
Asking Edmonton for $4.5 million though, right? So, or north of 4.5. So, but how far away were you in terms of how far apart were the Oilers and Broberg?
So there was never really an official offer. There was no offer that we made to them. We had discussions, about a number. It was in the range of $2 million was the number we thought was a fair 1-year deal. And we never really moved from there. Then they made an official offer, which they're not, they were within the marketplace anywhere. They did at 1.1, and it's the comparables are between 1.1 and 1.5. We just signed a kid, Jordan Spence in LA at 1.5. So we figured that would be the number possibly where it would end up if we didn't have the opportunity of offer sheets afforded to us. That's probably would have been the area we would have ended up. But that didn't come. So when that didn't come, we explored more of the offer sheets we had conversations with. There were 3 teams that were prepared, which included St. Louis, prepared to do something with Phillip. It was Army that came up with the idea of doing 2 players. And just coincidentally, I was already helping or working with Holloway's agent at the same time, and in his negotiations, and we ended up. Doug came up with the idea. I thought it was a great idea, especially now that I was already entrenched with Holloway as well as Broberg. It worked out perfect, yeah, and it made sure that you got the player. So
yeah, do you think you think well, yeah, exactly? I felt all along that the Blues were going to get one of the two, and I said, hey, you never know, they may end up getting both. And I never felt like they were going to get shut out of both players. Did you think, like, say you didn't bring in Holloway, do you still think the Blues would have Broberg today if it was just one player? You think that would have been an easier situation for Edmonton to navigate through?
Edmonton cannot match. They had no. It put them in a bind at that point, and I think, regardless of the fact that there was a second player here, it kind of ensured it. But I still say Broberg would have been offer sheeted and on one of the three teams, had he be the only one. And because Edmonton was in a position where they were already over the cap. I don't think the runway was clear here on the LTIR on Kane.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be viewed as circumvention had they had done that. That I'm sure the league would investigate it and say, hey, wait, you're putting him on LTIR because of this offer sheet. You can't do that. So it is a form of circumvention. That would have been my position. So they were in a difficult position to begin with. Now they needed time to make moves. They maneuvered, but they were still a touch over the cap there. So
let me ask you this. You look at Phillip Broberg, spent a lot of times in the minors, and listen, Larry Plow used to always say, hey, he's never seen a player stay too long in the minors. He's seen guys come up too quickly, but there was obvious some frustration on your part. When do you feel like he would have been ready to come up, and how much frustration was there? Because there's been some reports of you guys asking for a trade out of Edmonton. How many times did you guys ask for a trade?
Correct. So I had the conversation with Ken Holland at the time when he was there. The fact that they never kept, because the previous year I was frustrated with them playing 4 minutes and playing a seventh defenseman, which I know he could have done more. We kind of went through a lot the previous year. Then last year, again, I thought he showed well. Were there some mistakes? Yes, but they're livable mistakes. They're mistakes a young guy would probably make when he's up, but now his confidence is down. When you're throwing him out as a seventh defenseman and playing him 4 minutes, you're not really going to get a legitimate viewing of him. So as time went on there, I had a conversation with Kenny and just basically said, hey, we got to send him to the American League because he needs to play and play a lot. And he did so. He went down, didn't complain at all, went down, played 30 minutes a game, dominated at that level. And when you dominate that, you're ready for the NHL.
Yeah.
However, it was still restrictive for him to get up because of, the players they had signed. So there was a logjam there that, there's different cases, even to Larry's point, yes, for certain players, but sometimes they're just overloaded with the, defensemen and selfishly they try to hide them away and hope nobody notices. And if you're in that position, it's tough. And if you're up bumping against the cap, you're risking an offer sheet. So,
yeah, there's no doubt about that. Well, and you look at it now, I mean, it doesn't even look like the Cody Ceci trade to San Jose was in an effort to open up cap space to keep Broberg. In fact, I was told that even from people with San Jose that in their conversations, they knew at that time that Edmonton wasn't keeping either player. They weren't going to be able to match, and they weren't going to match. When did you guys find out that Edmonton was going to let them walk?
I mean, we were told that morning from Doug. I could tell you from my experience, I had the feeling they weren't going to match. I thought they were making moves to do so, but they still had to move more players. So I thought, okay, they're on a path to possibly doing it. I had a few media guys out west tell me, oh, they're going to match Broberg for sure. And then I had other guys say, oh no, they're going to match Holloway, let Broberg go. And problem is I don't listen to all that noise. It's, you could be either way. So Realistically, we don't know. They have the right up until that point. Could they do things? Could they have matched both and fought to before the start of trade of the season and made a decision on them at that point on what to do, whether to trade guys, send guys down, whatever they had to do to make themselves compliant. But I didn't see it. Honestly, I didn't see it. I even told the kids there's a very high, it was unlikely that they were going to be Edmonton Oilers. The only one I thought they might was Holloway because, that one would probably be an easy mend, but they didn't. So,
yeah, it's interesting. Hey, how strategic was the timing of when the offer sheets were sent over to Edmonton?
Yeah, so that was important because, if you had a player, we had to wait till after the arbitration period there so that they couldn't trade for a player for the second buyout period for a team. So if you don't have a player with arbitration rights, then you can't buy out any player. So there was always a risk of buyouts there too. So we had to make sure it passed that date. And that's the reason we waited until past August 6th there. I think it was that we had to make sure they get by and have it done. There was a point where I thought he wasn't going to St. Louis. I thought he was going to go to one of the other teams. Probably that might have been, was it the night before, I think, or it was, during the Holinka there. And Doug thought he was going to have trouble getting his pick back. So he said, if you had the other teams, go ahead. So I started the process with the other team, but then when Doug came back, said he's got it, I said, hey, I got to give it to the team that came up with the ideas, so that of doing both as opposed to one. So
you think the other teams that had interest, they would have wanted both players as well?
Broberg, but they all of a sudden, when I positioned doing both, they liked that idea too. So
of course they did.
Yeah. So
yeah. So I love that about the strategic timing of it, because people didn't realize that. We talked about that a few weeks or right after the offer sheet was made about you bring on a trade for a player with arb rights, then all of a sudden that opens up another buyout window, which could have, cleared space. How strategic was it also to keep everything quiet? And how important was that from Doug's standpoint to make sure this didn't get out? And do you think Edmonton had they didn't know it was coming, right? Okay.
They had no idea. Even Phillip didn't even tell his parents. So it never got out because I said to him, geez, you want me to explain to them? And they said, no, I'm not even telling them. So I said, okay, good. We'll keep it quiet, keep it a surprise. And that's the way it went. And I'm happy it worked out for him. It's great. You guys have an exciting player. I've watched this kid a long time, and it's a pretty special player, and I think he's going to be a star in that league.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing that for sure. Hey, how does a team react who's losing the player? In this case, Edmonton. Are they upset? Yeah. Do they understand the rules?
He wasn't happy with me. Like, I know that morning he called me and was disappointed. I said, hey, listen, I sat with his contract guy in Edmonton during the Ivan Holinka, and we had a conversation. I gave it one more last ditch effort there, because previously we talked not officially when I think it was during one of the games in Florida. Had breakfast with him and Kenny, and then subsequently at the Ivan Holinka, I went over, got an idea what they were looking at. Next day, I think it was a day or day after, he sent me his comparables and the offer for Phillip, and so I pursued to finish up here with the offer sheet.
Go ahead.
Dan wasn't brought into that, in fairness, but he got in there late, and it's tough.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. One thing people need to understand and remember is that the player doesn't have to sign the offer. So correct. You have to get them to sign. I remember Mitch Marner talking about it before he signed the contract that is going to expire this year. I think you had some options and some teams interested.
I had two offer sheets, spoke to two owners, two general managers. They were seriously considering, but wanted to make sure Mitch would sign it. Problem I had, Mitch wouldn't sign it. So
yeah. because he wanted to stay in Toronto. So you got to get the players.
And the numbers are different than, the team was off, we were in the ballpark. It's different. We're in the ballpark. So if Edmonton was coming back to me in that,
different
3.5 area, then you're going, okay, now you're there, you're going to play. If the writing was like, maybe he would have reconsidered, but these young guys weren't playing. They had an older lineup in Edmonton. They saw the writing on the wall. And I believe if they sign these cheaper deals come trade deadline, there's a very strong possibility they'd be the carrot that's put out there to get them a player to maybe push them over the top, an older player. Who knows? That always happens in some cases. And that's why I thought this is a great move. It's an opportunity for them to play significant roles, I think, in St. Louis. They're on the right trajectory. You've got a very wise and astute general manager there that with experience, that's well respected. I think you guys will do well going forward.
Yeah, no, I'm so impressed by everybody's work in this, from you to Army. I mean, just to be able to put some real experience, together to make this happen, which is why I always say, if I'm an owner, I want experience in my front office. And if I'm a player and you're going to go sign with an advisor, or you want to get an agent, and make sure the agent has some experience and knows what he's doing for situations like this. It's so important, to be able to do that. Hey, walk me through that though. So you're already working with Blake Robson, the agent who represents Holloway.
Correct.
So how does that conversation come about with you and Doug to go ahead and offer Holloway as well?
Well, I was already talking to him about what he was doing with his player anyway, as far as a contract extension. He reached out and we had a good conversation on what he was doing. And so within keeping him within, because whatever he does would affect some of my other players too. So it's important. Sometimes, the wiser agents will communicate and say, okay, what's your guy getting? Making sure that there's, no collateral damage if they do something, that might affect someone else in arbitration. You always got to be aware that you have a responsibility partly to your constituents too. So as a player, you can't just take a terrible deal that affects everybody else too at the same time, right? So.
Yeah. Well, the one thing no one's really talking about, I mean, they were early on. It's the obvious. So I don't want to say that it hasn't been mentioned, because everyone just focuses on the cap space and they don't have room and this and that. But, I mean, Edmonton's got some big-time players they got to sign. So really, Correct. That's what this is all about, right? I mean, that's a huge part of this. I mean, they got to be able to sign these other guys, right? Yeah.
Correct. That's why you have the 2-year deal, because they've got to sign Bouchard and Draisaitl the next year, and that's what makes it real difficult, as opposed to a 1-year deal. It might have been something they would have considered, but with the 2-year deal, I think that kind of solidified the trade. And the other nonsense thing that was out there that Kenny wouldn't, or that Doug wouldn't do this because Kenny was there, I think that's nonsense, because when I was looking early, when Kenny was there and it wasn't, he wasn't gone at that point, but even another team that knows him very well was willing to do it if it came to it. It was considering it at that time. It was early goings, but general managers aren't going to not do it when there's an opportunity just because someone's that they know is a friend of theirs. And I think that was nonsense.
Well, Doug would have done it to his mother, Darren. So he really
correct. I know. Any good GM, that's the way you got to. That's what you're gonna do. I mean, your owner would be question you if you weren't taking that position. So
no doubt. All right, last thing for you, Broberg. Just in terms of his upside, his talent, he's just scratching the surface. He played 10 games this past year in the regular season. Obviously, came on in the playoffs, and he was very impressive in the playoffs. Just 81 games total in his young NHL career. He's just 23 years of age. So he's really just coming into his own. I mean, you typically, you need a couple hundred games under your belt as a defenseman in this league to really evolve and have an idea of who you have and what you have. But what are the Blues getting in Phillip Broberg?
So here's the thing, not to put too much pressure on him and too much expectation with you guys, but quite frankly, he's a very special player. He's excelled at every level he's been at, whether in the world stage or you saw at the American League. Now last year he dominated and playing where the coach was playing him 30 minutes. That's a lot for a defenseman. And given the time here, I believe is going to do the same. He's a very, very fluid skater. You will love his abilities, as far as skating and his overall game. I think it's going to be very enjoyable to watch. And I don't want to put too much pressure on him or set the expectation up too high so that those types. Sometimes I know in hockey we tend to some of these guys, we put too much pressure on them and expect too much from them too early. So I don't want to do that to him here, but he's a very special talent. That's all I can tell you. You got a hell of a player. I think, eventually you guys will look back and go, boy, that was a good deal.
Well, you got to do it to certain players that you truly want to bring into your organization and that can elevate your organization.
Defensemen. It's hard to find good defensemen.
Yeah, it is. No doubt. That's why it's not. Hey, listen, it's a win-win for the Blues, man. This is almost too good to be true. So, listen, congrats on all you did there, man. This is fantastic. And listen, I got to ask you because Chief, obviously, Craig Berube, we know him very well, and worked alongside him for a long time. How do you think that'll work with Mitch Marner? What kind of relationship do you expect them to have as player, coach, and do you feel like that's going to be good for Mitch to have that type of communicator in-house who, knows how to, kind of speak the language of elite players in the NHL?
Yeah, I mean, he's a tremendous coach, well-respected. Any of my players have all spoke highly of him. So it'll be an interesting season. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, see how things go.
I know. That's all I'm going to get out of you about Mitch Marner. We're going to have this again, Darren. I'm bringing you back on. And we'll talk. We don't want everybody to get all up in arms in Toronto. We don't want to create any noise right now with that. So,
we got a lot of pending free agents this year. I think I got Sam Bennett, Taylor Hall, you got Mitch, you got Athanasiou, so I've got a few. I got a busy schedule this summer.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let you go get to work.
Okay.
But great job, Darren. Appreciate you coming on and doing this. Okay, I appreciate
it.
Okay, take care.
Take care.
That's Darren Ferris. Awesome stuff from him. And again, incredible work done by an agent and by a general manager to be able to come together and do something that I don't think we've ever seen before, right? Two players offered at the same time. Fantastic stuff. That interview is always brought to you by First Community, which brings us Hockey Sense here on YouTube and all the podcast apps. Be sure to subscribe and come along for the ride. We'll do this every Friday. Don't confuse this with the Cam and Strick podcast. We drop the Cam and Strick podcast every Tuesday. And we'll have some great interviews with coming up on the Cam and Strick podcast as well. We got a special one coming up this Tuesday and another special one coming up the following Tuesday as well. So, again, be sure to subscribe and follow both the Cam and Strick podcast as well as Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Speaking of First Community, they've got the back-to-school auto loans. Hey, summer's pretty much over. We all know that. It's back to school. Are your kids back in school? My kids are back in school. It's quiet at the house right now, which is always kind of nice. You can buy a new or reliable quality used car and still get the loan. You get the same loan at First Community, whether it's a used car or a new car. We always want to point that out. So that's the secret that most people don't know about First Community. So most places, they charge a higher rate for used autos, but not at First Community. So check that out. There's more good news, too. Auto loan rates just went down at First Community. So if you want quality, you can get a 60-month rate for under 6%. Are you kidding me? I promise you that's a great rate. So do your homework and find out all the rates that are out there for yourself. You get them under 6%. Again, First Community, same rate, used or new. That's not always the case. We appreciate all our sponsors, 314 Sports Cards, of course, Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop, baby. Get in there and get that app and do it today at Dirt Cheap. They got the best selection of beer, wine, and booze you'll find anywhere. They've got discounts on Blues game days. They've got that walk-in beer cooler. It's about to get hot again here in St. Louis. So if you're looking to cool off, go hang out in the beer cooler over there at Dirt Cheap. You won't find a better selection of beer, wine, and booze anywhere. Don't sleep on the party supplies. You can do curbside pickup. Some places have drive-thrus as well. But if you're looking for back-to-school parties, fall parties, Halloween parties, all that, and you need the decorations and the paper goods and all that stuff, you can find all of that at Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Download that app today. Great company, locally owned, once again, which is kind of the theme of all our sponsors. Most of them are pretty much all locally owned, including Dirt Cheap Fun. The Wallace family, man, taking St. Louis's experience over there at Dirt Cheap to the next level, one Dirt Cheap at a time. All right, for Aiden and everybody affiliated with the show here at Half Coast Studios, we thank Darren Ferris for joining us. It's been an exciting week. Subscribe and follow us on YouTube and all of the podcast platforms. I'm Andy Strickland, reminding you to keep your head up and your stick on the ice. We'll do it again next week. Have a great weekend, St. Louis.